Hey, welcome to episode number 219 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on October the 22nd, 2023. My name's Eric, I'm the host of the show, based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, computer geek. As a first responder, witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events, and started a small preparedness company to help people get better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
And I'm Jeff. I am based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, ham radio operator, general overall handyman, and weather nerd.
And I'm Brad in Eastern Ontario, part-time amateur prepper, constantly trying to get better.
My name's Pierre. I'm a tactical beard owner, kind of good t-shirt and engraving kind of guy. Government critique, and the reason we need to hit the explicit button most fucking nights.
I'm the Frugal Gunnie, recently moved to Northern Ontario, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. I'm an off-grider, shooter, hunter, fisher, gatherer, trapper type, and a generalist, and I only recently came to accept that I'm a prepper.
I'm Terry. I live in sunny Central Ontario, and I'm a starving indie author, and I gotta admit, I'm a self-confessed pathetic gardener, so this episode is for me.
I'm Corey. I'm from CC Squared, Back to Basics Gardening. I'm basically interested in everything that is old school when it comes to seed saving, horticulturist, landscaping, all of that nature. Bit of a prepper myself. I like to be prepared. Not having a plan is planning to fail.
Hi, I'm Mel. Thank you for having me on this incredible podcast again. It's always a pleasure. I absolutely adore anything nature and the secrets she holds. Besides my green thumb, curious mind, and the love for nature, I'm an avid hunter, hippie at heart, horticultural student, and someone that enjoys life's adventure with an open mind and the willingness to learn and share what I know.
Awesome. Well, welcome both to the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And if you want to help to support the show, embrace consumerism, not communism, Pierre, consumerism, and buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on, the backup generator fueled, and cover our podcast costs.
Yay. They're not much, are they?
Fair enough.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and submit a review on iTunes or wherever you may have found us. We seriously want your feedback, good or bad, even if it's just a topic you want us to cover or something you learned this week. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some dirty content for you in this episode. Not the kind you're thinking of. You got to find our OnlyFans for that. We're going to start off with some relevant news articles. Then we're going to touch up on our personal prep since the last episode. We're going to get into the main topic of shutting down the garden. So let's move into the news, shall we?
Yeah, the only really thing I've got, protests are continuing to pop up with what's going on over across the pond over there. Just be your situational awareness. Keep that amongst you. Be aware of what's going on. In Toronto the other night, one of the groups tried to block the gardener. They breached the first line of the police, but were turned back at the on-ramp. So they almost made it onto the highway, and that would have been another disaster, but for people trying to get in and out of the city. So again, just be aware of your situational awareness and keep an eye to what's going on around you.
Yep, good points.
I did throw up an article. It was basically, it's kind of what we're sort of talking about. It is plant related. It is how plants communicate with each other when in danger. And it basically just states like how plants will release a certain chemical compound that will let everybody know what's going on. And it even goes further into speaking about how trees kind of connect everything nature-wise and communicate through them. And it's actually a pretty cool article if you'd like to read it. I don't know if you want to throw it in the chat notes or whatever.
Just tossed it in there.
I found it in. Sweet. I just found it quite interesting to read.
That sounds neat.
Oh, it is pretty cool.
Cool. Well, let's
we need
move
to
into
put that on a tree. Oh.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mel.
I was just going to say we need to have a show about tree communication. That would actually be pretty cool.
That would be neat. All right, let's move into what we've done lately for preps. start off with Brad.
Did a little bit of fuel rotation to make sure I've got some going through the old stuff. Make sure I've got some good stuff for the upcoming cold season, which is really sucks because it's Canada. Shed cleanup, clean out stuff, whatnot continues. Almost finished closing down my camper. Blew out all my my water lines and emptied all the tanks today. Pulled in the pop out and made sure everything was good, and just organized some things on the inside, and should be okay. And then work, and then some more work, and that was it. Yeah, staying busy. Jeff?
I met up with the local prepper group in the area this afternoon. Had, as usual, some good conversation. Talked about a bunch of different things. One of them being generators, which is kind of near and dear to my heart. So I kind of gave them some ideas and ways to get their generators, the power into their house without having to open windows and doors and run tons of extension cords. So we'll see how things go. I did fuel rotation as well. And speaking of generators, I did my monthly generator test on my 2 generators, and everything appears to be working fine. Knock on wood.
Awesome. Opposite to my week. So busy week for me. I was away from home teaching some nerd stuff, but that allowed me the opportunity to meet up with Gunnie, Pierre, Mel, and Brad. So that was fun. Beyond that, while I was away, our fridge decided to kick the bucket and turn into one big giant freezer. So that was fun, but was able to get home and trace back what went wrong anyways on the main board and resolder a couple of points, and so lo and behold, it actually works again. So pretty happy with that. And right as soon as it got that fixed, the dryer decided to zap itself. So yes, again, because the stupid thing just likes to keep breaking. So I had to tear it apart and rewire a few things, but so far, knock on wood, it's working again. But if my background turns from the antennas here to a bunch of smoke later on, I obviously did something wrong and I'll have to go. But for now, it works. So,
we're pulling for you.
Fire extinguisher at the ready.
Fire extinguisher at the ready. You got it. I've got a couple along the way too, so I'll be ready.
There you go. So I had the pleasure of meeting up with Eric finally. I was included in the chat of hanging out this time when he was around my area. So we met up for supper. Got some more packing done. Kept finding more stuff that I forgot we had. So that's going in a more important box to sort through when we get there. Getting ready for the house. So we're making some shopping lists. We did some big boy purchases. We're officially adults this week and all that. So just getting ready for the big move because that's
welcome to the club.
Yeah, that's happening real soon. So just getting on the way of planning for the renos and trying to get all their stuff there and least amount of trips and less amount of headaches. So we'll see how that goes.
You want a fridge and a dryer?
You see what he did? You see what he did?
Does it come with the fire
I'm eating your
extinguisher?
wings. He was also down when we went and got the washer and dryer.
Yeah, we just bought them, so we're good. Thank you.
Yeah, but we bought and then went to meet up with Eric and Brad.
Yes. I'll just change the shipping address for what you bought later on in the system. It's fine.
It's scary because you probably can.
It was new. It was good while it lasted.
There you go.
Oh, yes. Okay, I'll follow my husband. Like he said, packing, and yeah, so packing, and then I've also during the packing process, I started to notice that we have an abundance of stuff that we thought we cleared out from like our transitioning from like quote unquote old lifestyle to like what our new lifestyle is. So I know when we move into our house that we just purchased, I know that we have a lot to rid of and clear out so we can let the new roll in. Other than that, it's been school for me.
Very nice.
Excellent.
Well, on my end, I met up with Eric. Got to see some of my shopping habits. So I picked up a portable 200-watt solar panel. I just couldn't resist it at Costco. So it was just the kind of thing to match up with my battery pack that's coming up. And I couldn't resist the long underwear deal. So I'll be testing that out in the next few weeks.
I don't know which one you were more excited about.
I'm still not sure either which one I'm the most excited about. I'll let you know once I try them out. How's that?
Fair enough. Just try them at the same time.
He's hoping the first time he has to use it, he's standing outside in those long underwear in the sun watching it charge. Like that, the perfect trifecta of joyness coming from
If I can combine it into a video, we might have a winner there.
Right.
Will that be on your OnlyFans or your YouTube?
There we go. I knew that was coming.
We're going to have to wait and find out.
That's right. I guess you just have to subscribe.
I was basically just splitting wood, getting wood ready for the fireplace because you never know when the actual cold weather is going to hit. I mean, minus 30 sucks. And also building, like I said, new cages for my chickens, some for my quail, just to make sure that I have at least eggs and some produce. And I'm not fighting Mother Nature when it comes to foxes, coyotes, hawks, things of that nature. I can actually control that, and that's what I've been doing.
Nice. Brilliant. Hey, Terry.
Okay, yours truly. Well, he's been doing more food preps. I got to say, the events of the last few weeks have been a bit of a motivator for just doubling down on everything, just in case.
Yes,
Better
sir.
to have and not need than need not have, right?
You got it.
And
Absolutely.
I see, what else have I done here? Oh, I topped up my reloading supplies as well, and I did a little more target practice and some little bit of reloading this week. I'm getting some of the rust off because I haven't done any in a while, so I had to get back into the groove again.
It's probably because you weren't able to find supplies.
No, I've got inventory, my friend. I've got inventory. I was just topping off a few things just because they were still available. And I thought, what the hell?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I got to work. I could probably
Stack
invade a
deep.
small country and get away with it here. But
Allegedly.
Nice.
Allegedly.
Well, of course.
Yes, right.
Nice.
All right. I think we got everybody in that round. Perfect. Let's move into the main
Huzzah.
topic, shall we? So this evening, like I said, we're talking about gardening, zipping up the garden because old man winter is a coming. So we figured we'd bring a couple of folks on that say they know what to do and how to do it. So I'll turn it over to Corey and Mel and let you guys nerd out about zipping up the garden and all the fun gardening stuff.
Well, I was halfway there when
Okay.
she started talking about the communication of the plants. That's why I love having a conversation with vegetarians who say they don't kill anything. And I ask them to politely think next time they pull a carrot out of the ground, that ripping sound, right? That is the sound of the plant wanting to not die. It's still a living
the
thing.
grass
It breathes.
when you
It
cut it?
communicates with everything. Yeah,
Oh,
it's that smell is the smell of death. It's literally the smell of death, and we love that smell. You can drive by the fresh cut grass. I love it. That's literally the grass is sending out a chemical saying, "I'm dying. Please help me."
I am not opening the feedback email for at least a week now.
I really like him. Can we keep him?
Sorry, no. Moral of the story: everything dies. If you want to survive, something has to die.
It's true.
And there's no
Yep.
arguments about it one way or the other. If you want to survive as a human being, something else has to die.
Yep.
One way or
Yep.
the other. If you want to.
You're not sure. Yeah.
One way or the other. However you want to justify it is by you, but one way or another, something has to die.
Well, great show, guys. That was fantastic. Just on that note, yeah.
See,
We
this is why I don't go out.
Vegans.
I stay in my. I don't go anywhere. I stay here.
But it's honestly, it's a good point though, right? Nobody ever really considers that, but anything that's living kills something else to survive, right? It's the way it is.
Regardless of how you look at it, and that goes down to the microbial level. Like something's always eating something.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good point. But, so what's some advice you guys would have for, because everybody's kind of getting ready to shut their gardens down now for the winter, and put them to bed and get ready for next season. So what are some things that you guys would suggest or good steps for people to take that are starting that process now?
And honestly, right now,
Mel,
it's kind of honestly, it depends on how you want to do. Like for me, I quote unquote do a lazy gardening. Like I tend to like to leave my plants in the soil depending on what they are, so that when I come back during the spring, I just till everything into the soil so that it helps build all that nice nutrients back into the soil, brings all that, the what is it here? I'm losing my thoughts here. Like the from like all the gas reactions to the nutrients, to the vitamins, the minerals, all that stuff. You want to implement that, especially with this type of soil that we have here at the rental and what we've gone through with the last people that lived here. That's why I keep putting in that organic matter back into the soil, because it becomes better for the plants in the long run. So that's honestly my start to the winter, honestly, is collect my seeds that I can, and I just let it go. But there is other processes where you can rip everything out if you want. I have some for people that will lay cardboard on top, especially if they wanting to expand, which we'll get into that a little bit later, expand their garden and stuff like that. However, I'm not a big fan of using cardboard, for the fact that if you're not careful what kind of cardboard you're using, you're actually putting in chemical compounds that you don't want, that will actually cause more problems in the future if you keep piling that up, because your soil will obtain that toxin. And then going back to having plants talk to each other, it will be sent to your community plants, because everything is basically connected like an internet network. You got your hub, and then you got all your little other terminals, and
So
type
is
of thing.
painting cardboard the best cardboard to put in the garden?
As long as it
Not the-
doesn't scream when you rip it out.
So something else that people don't really utilize much is leaves. I drive by many houses, and they bag up their leaves on the front, and they put them away for just a waste collection. I scratch my head because the leaves that you're raking up and you're bringing to the compost pile to get rid of, that is the best organic matter you could be adding back onto your soil. So all you have to do is take a lawnmower and mulch it, and just drive over it again and again and again. And that is going to sit on top of your grass, as long as it's on big clumps, right? You can rake it in, and that is going to call all the nice little, the earthworms and the little bits that are going to come in, and they're going to fertilize, and they're going to add organic nutrients back to your soil. So it's something as simple as just mow your lawn, right? If you don't want to rake, mow. And then you're one step ahead when it comes to spring.
That almost is faster
And even
than
those
raking it all up.
and even honestly, leaving those. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to say, actually, that was my question. Was it was more for the garden, not the grass, but was leaves? Do you leave them on the garden, or do you?
You can rake them up and put them in the garden. Absolutely, 100%.
Even your grass clippings.
Like the leaf mold is by far your best friend that's not utilized at all by many gardeners. They sort of just forget about them because it's just their leaves, and they sort of go to the wayside. If you can actually mow them and rake them, and you have a nice, almost like confetti, right? And you lay that on your garden, it's going to break down in a matter of weeks, days, months, especially in the if we get a nice hot spring, all that's just going to turn to lush blackness, like black gold. And you can add that, and you're off to the races. It has a great moisture absorbent. It's almost like peat moss, right? So you're adding a lot of that,
or like mulch.
Yes, you're adding that back into the soil. It's fantastic.
Oh, good to know. Okay, great.
Yeah. Now, is that the same for all types of leaves? Is there a certain leaf to avoid that with?
You try not to.
Chestnut and black walnut, I definitely would recommend not to, because they are very acidic, and that will screw up your soil.
But there's something that they're usually out on their own anyway. So to get those, I'm talking about things like a lot of people that have it on their property are like maple, oak leaves and things of that nature, poplar. If you can just mow all those, especially oak leaves, because they have a waxy film on them, if you look at them, so they take a lot longer to break down. So if you can actually mulch them up and mulch them well, you're way ahead of the game.
You can also leave a portion of your Yeah, you can also leave a portion of your garden with just full leaves. You may not get the same nutrient effect. However, it will help the good garden pests and the bad garden pests in the garden as well, because you need all those guys to kind of work in unison to, in the spring and all that stuff to start help breaking it all down and pulling out that process as well.
Now,
Also works as a good ground cover. I mean, yeah, it's a good weed barrier too, to keep moisture in. If you're gonna layer it like that, absolutely it would work.
And it's sometimes it's a little bit better than mulch too, because depending on what wood you're using, just like I said earlier, you could add more problematic things into your soil than actually adding the good stuff into your soil. So you really got to pay attention. And a lot of the times too, they dye it to get all those fancy dancy colors. And where do you think the dye would do to your ground?
Probably not good.
You got to be big.
No. It's and it doesn't take much just to get natural wood. I mean, you can find lots of places. There's usually tree trimming companies. If you find them on the side of the road, for example, and you ask them, like, where are you taking that load of wood chips? And they'll tell you, and then you can say, well, how about I give you $50 and you come to my house?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's easier for them. Instead of getting rid of it, they're actually making money. They're dropping off. They can get back to work, and you have your wood chips. So it's always nice, and it's starting a conversation. I mean, really.
I got a great question here that I think Darius has also. I'm sure other people have, and I've seen the Amish dealing with their soil, but they don't talk much about what their practices are. What if you have a lot of clay? My area has got a ton of clay, and it's got a really high water table, and I just would love to know what your tips are for that.
See, adding amendments to soil, you're going to need a lot of it. It's going to take time, especially if you have like clayey soil. You're just going to need to add a bunch of organic matter, so composted material, manure, like compost and manure, things of that nature. If you can't, right? If it's impossible for you to do, the only solution you have is build up.
Yeah.
So
but
if you can't grow down, whoops, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and also what you got to remember, the thing is clay is basically like a compacted soil, right? Like if you have a high traffic area at your normal house versus your cabin, right? And that area is constantly driven on and walked on and all that stuff. You're slowly actually compacting the soil, which is making it very hard to get the water to actually go into it as well. So with clay, you kind of play that same route about too. So like Corey was saying, once you build up, if you can't add in, it's the best way, because now you're going to reestablish your own ecosystem starting in that one point. And especially if you can attach a tree to that one starting of that little ecosystem, it will be awesome. Because like I said earlier, it's almost like putting your own hub to start your own network from there on. But if you do have clay, because funny enough, this is actually what we just finished learning in the arboriculture course I'm taking, you can add things like rock and sand and all that stuff to it. But you also have to be careful, because if you add too much sand, now you're going to end up with the same compression issue that you have with the clay already. Rocks, you got to be careful where you're getting the rocks, because you don't want to add minerals and nutrients that are going to be detrimental instead of helpful to you. But the rocks will give you, the rocks will kind of give you that air to water ratio that you need, because you got but people don't remember is, yeah, you're watering your plants, but you also have to allow the oxygen to come in, because there is a whole gas type of sciencey thing that happens too, right? Like it's almost like driving a car with, you got to have that ratio to allow your plants to get what they need.
Oh, we could easily spin off into interesting topics with this, but in terms of timing of those amendments, are besides the leaves, because I thought that was a great tip, because we all have deciduous trees somewhere on most of our properties. But which of those amendments would you say are like really key to consider at this time of the year when we're closing up?
See, this time of year, it's almost fantastic, because the plants themselves, when we'll just use hostas, right? They're just a plant that everyone has. It's just in the garden. You don't necessarily need to clean up hostas, because the leaves that are actually decaying and decomposing are adding all that nutrients back into the soil right where the plant is, right where the roots are. So even those stalks, you can cut them, because a lot of people don't like the flowers of hostas. They just like the green foliage, which is fine, personal preference. But those stalks, I find they look really fantastic come Halloween. especially if you put a light on them and things. It's almost like they're moving in the wind, and it's this whimsical little twisted scene. But that's anyway, personal preference.
I love it.
But even all those stalks, like you can go in the springtime and easily chop those down. You don't have to necessarily take them all down now. But as for the amendments in the soil, the leaves themselves are actually going to add a bunch of that nutrients back into the soil right at the base of the plant. Right? So you can clean it up next year, especially in the spring. You'd probably want to move some stuff out of the way, that stuff that didn't actually rot all the way. And if you need to tidy up a bit, but it's not necessary. Nature knows what it's doing. It's been doing it way longer than we have. We sort of just.
Go
ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. Finish your stuff, Corey.
Well, it's basically sometimes less is more, right?
Yes.
But in your situation where you're sort of in a pickle where you want to grow things, but your soil is not allowing it, what can you do? A good solution, especially if you're in the woods or you have access to a lot of hardwood, wood in general, is you can build almost like a hugelkultur type raised bed. Okay, and that's where you have hardwood on the bottom, and then you have some mulched like leaves and things of that nature, small twigs, and then a lot of soil, a lot of good organic matter, soil, right on top of that. Now, what's going to happen is that's going to start to decompose from the inside. It's going to start to compost, and it's going to create a lot of heat. Now, as you plant in those hillsides, okay, of your hugelkultur, everything's going to be going to where the heat is. So you're going to try, or the roots are going to try to get it down as deep as they can. It's going to give you a bumper crop. All right. As it rots, it's actually getting better and better and better for you. So it's something that you might want to look into.
Okay.
And especially, Claude, if you notice that if you start getting mushrooms, that is a really good sign that you're on the right path for really good soil.
Good tip. I see all kinds of people trying to get rid of their mushrooms.
No, if anything, work them back into the soil.
Yeah, but the guy
Mushrooms,
on the street
believe it or
corner
not,
is a
is
different kind of
Yeah,
mushroom.
that guy.
That's a
But the
different
thing
kind of
what people
mushroom.
don't realize with mushrooms is that they're actually kind of like the connecting point, right? The tree will send the information from whatever plant it gathered, but the mushroom is what's actually connecting that connection to the tree to send the information, and it exchanges. The mushroom will actually exchange with the tree for certain nutrients and values and continue to send that on. So like they are a really big part of it because it's actually the mycelium that connects the connections, and the mushroom is actually their reproductive system that you're actually seeing.
So
This is
the
bringing
plants
up a
work.
massive thought
Yeah,
about all this black soil that you're buying, and that's all fully sterilized. What are your thoughts on fully sterilized soil? What's the deal?
Well, basically,
Live soil be better?
It all really depends. I mean, if you're getting soil that's been sort of put through the pasteurizer and it's just been burnt, right? You're getting a lot of just topsoil. There's not much nutrients in it. I mean, it's basically all just been depleted because it's been burnt, right? There's nothing living anymore. And that's the whole point of soil. Soil is a living thing, right? There has to be all these little bacteria and all these little babits and all these little imperfections, and that's going to make it thrive. As soon as you burn it all, you have to add more amendments now, which are easy to do. You can do it after the fact, right? But if you want to get screen stuff, that's going to help you. But there's always going to be weeds, no matter what you do. You can't help it. It's blowing in the wind. There's always going to be weeds, and weeds want to grow. So even if you think that you're doing everything you can with your soil, and you've done everything to make sure that there's not a speck of seed in there, 2 weeks later, nature will prove you wrong. So don't feel bad.
100%.
Okay.
Okay.
However, there is other ways. Go ahead.
Okay, so just going along with, for example, the example you gave, Frugal, to say like build yourself a box, put all that soil. So knowing the community around him would say a cleaned out stall, some dirty hay and some horse manure
Oh yeah.
be good as like that base that you're looking for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, so before we go off, like,
yeah.
okay, so we're talking manures. What
Oh yeah. Talk
what-
dirty.
what's your top picks?
We got
you
the
know?
Kool-Aid man coming through the wall
Yeah.
here.
like you've got your top 3 picks, right? You've got a clean slate. You can get 1,000 tons of it at your house and change your whole backyard into a garden. What are your 3 top picks, and what are the 2-3 things that are at the bottom of your list? Just for maybe a small explanation on which one, what puts into the ground what, and what's not good to use, or takes time that if you're using this type of manure, you might have to wait a year or 2 for those things to break down better. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Now, pound for pound, I know this is going to sound really weird, but rabbit manure, pound for pound, is the best manure you're going to get. Okay, so
please tell them about your tea. Please tell them about your tea.
Oh, I have to, because honestly, rabbits were part of the World War I survival garden for a reason. All right, they reproduce. They give you enough added protein to your diet, so you don't need to worry about much of anything as long as your garden is successful. I love a good carrot, and that's sort of a little symbiosis between me and the rabbit. But the funny thing about the rabbit is it's working for you. Okay, so while you're weeding your garden, all of those weeds are going into a bucket, which are then going to feed my rabbit. And my rabbit's going to turn all the weeds that I pulled out of my garden into a fantastic little pellet of nutrients that you could literally catch with your hand and throw on the plant. There's no waiting. There's none of this having to, with, for example, cow, horse, pig, chicken. All of these need time to actually burn off because they're really high in nitrogen. They're called a hot manure, and they can actually burn your plants. Cold manure, right?
And they can catch on fire when they mix them.
Yeah, it's just hot. It's hot. It's really, when you put your hands near it, it's hot, right? But then there's also your cold manure, such as like your goats, your rabbits. Those are literally you can catch and throw. Sheep, all the same. There's also green manure such as buckwheat and things that you can basically just grow and then till into the ground, all of which are fantastic. But as for the manure that I prefer, rabbit. Okay. After that, it would probably be horse or cow, just because they have it in such abundance. I mean, it's everywhere. You can go to any farmer, say a horse farmer, and you can ask them for manure. Now, every time I've gone to ask for manure, they usually help me with the buckets because they have too much of it anyway, right? There's only so much you can do with what they have. So they usually are very generous with what they're giving away because it's going to happen again tomorrow, right? So they have no problems.
I have a question for you. Since I know that rabbit actually poops twice. They have one poop that they actually put through their body, which they'll actually re-ingest. Then they have their normal fecal process, their normal shed. Now, do you use both, or do you try and pan out just the first run through that they usually ingest, or it doesn't matter?
Ground don't care. Because all that is it's a little bit of nutrients that hasn't been absorbed into the body yet. So that's the 2-stage system. It's like a cow chewing its cud. Right? You're trying to get every last little bit of nutrients out of that stuff before it goes through your intestine and gets out of you. Right? Except it's on a more compact scale because it comes out in little Cocoa Puff forms. Right? So they're trying to get as much of that out by squeezing it. Actually, same process as giraffes, if you can believe it. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So, but it's and a really great way, again, if let's go back to the tea as well, because this is something you can add to your soil now, but preferably in the spring, right? So this is shutting down the garden, right? So you might want to add a little bit of nutrients and things, and you're running out of time. Make a compost tea. Just make a tea. A tea is easy. All you got to do is have a pillowcase, right? You get some manure, a couple shovelfuls, you toss it into the pillowcase, you stick that in the water. You let it sit there for about 2 weeks. All right. It's going to make a nice little blend of tea. It's going to be a nice mixture. There will be an aroma. All right. Okay. But then you take the pillowcase out of the water, you dump that into your compost pile, and now what you have made yourself is a fantastic homemade brew of plant food.
100%.
All right. So as you're
And
watering the plants now, you're giving them a nice little shot, right? Right. I mean, that's why you try to do it in the spring, because you don't want them growing right now. All their energy is going back into storing. They don't really want to work too hard. They want to store as much energy as they can because their season's done.
especially when
But
you got something that
that
has
was the tea that Melissa was talking about.
Okay.
yeah, and especially the fact that what Corey's he's touching on, right? Because you've got to remember some plants are their bulbs and all that stuff. So when they're starting to go into the winter process, like he said, they're pulling all that energy back into those bulbs so that they can be reused for next year, as long as they're not past their biannual or whatever term that they run on.
So if I understand right, by kicking the water in there, what you're doing is you're basically starting like a mini swamp where it's really coming alive, and that just feeds the next growth cycles of anything that gets into that or it comes in contact with. Is that right?
And that's a big reason why you wouldn't really want to be doing that now. I mean, if your plant was struggling, right, and you kind of wanted to give it a little bit of a shot, just maybe to add a little bit of vigor to it, right? And like you'd probably want to go with like a high phosphorus fertilizer, but it's something that you wouldn't be doing with a compost tea. That's something very direct, right?
Yeah.
But if you're adding just to the plant's general health, you'd sure water it, but I would try to hold off. If you need to protect it from the elements this year, if we have a tree that's looking a little bit sick or might not make it through the winter, a simple A-frame with a couple things of burlap, just wrap it around. As long as it's protected from those huge freezing cold gusts of winds that we get that just cut through anything that's in its way, that'll help the plant actually make it. Then in the spring, as soon as you see buds form, hit it with some food, give it some life, give it some love, and that'll actually kickstart the process for the plant, and you'll be thanking it later on.
Yes, because trees do go through secondary growth. They have their primary and secondary growth. And also to touch on what Corey said too, when you're preparing your plants for winter, especially trees, you got to keep in mind that if you're going to do any type of attachment around the tree trunk or anything like that, you want to be very careful, because anything that you do to that outside of that bark, especially during the earlier stages, can actually hinder the plant. You can actually weaken your trunk by putting up my word's skipping me, stables, or not stables, but my lord,
Like nails or something.
Yeah. To help keep the tree stable is what I'm getting at, right? You want to be careful, because you don't want to damage your plant. You don't want to create any weak spots in your tree or your bush or you know what I mean? Because your whole point of this is not only to help this living creature grow and blossom and make your yard look pretty, but you don't want to hinder that. You don't want to have, like, a couple years down the road, you created a weak spot because you're helping keeping the trees stable, and now it's falling on your roof.
So you're talking about anything that makes contact with the bark and would create friction or binding around that external skin, for lack of a better
you
word.
see,
Yes?
a lot of the common stable that you will see someone put up is usually like it's anywhere from 1 to 4 different spikes put into the ground. They'll use chain, and then, believe it or not, you can cut up a piece of hose and put it around the chain, the chain, and then put that around the tree, and it should help with not scarring it or wearing the bark. However, it will rub and it will create all that. So you got to kind of find a compromise where you want to also let your tree be able to blow around and do everything, because plants use that to grow their stalk, their strength. They use that for their root system to become more stable in the ground itself, and that's the whole point of all that.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So far this is some pretty good stuff as far as getting things kind of shut down, ready to go again in the spring. This fantastic information. Let's back it up a touch. And I know that it's important to know, like, your growing area or your growing zone, I believe it's referenced to as. Is there a quick and easy way to look up kind of what zone you are located in? Because I know we have listeners from all over the place.
Honestly, you can Google it. Like, I know Ontario is, like, where we are, we're 5B. So you can
Okay.
honestly just Google what zone is and put in your town name or whatever. They'll pull up maps. I think the Ontario government actually has a dedicated spot on their good old platform to show you all that stuff. So you just have to click down or scroll through all the township or whatever names, but it will tell you what that is. And you're right, Eric. That is very key because you don't want to plant something that belongs in, 2 and you're 5, right? So because you're not going to have a good successful grow.
And is that if you look up the zone, does that kind of spell out for you in that look up what you can grow, or do you have to expand out after finding your zone? Is there somewhere else to look as to what can grow in that zone?
It's both, right? Because when you usually go to a nursery or somewhere that sells plants, most of the time they will have your little tag or those little toothpick looking things there, the little tabs that are in the soil. And when you flip those back, it will tell you your zone. Plus, it also tell you what kind of sun it needs. Sometimes it adds the type of fertilizer and a few other requirements it may need. However, again, a good Google search will be awesome to find what you need. The biggest thing I do suggest, though, is making sure you reference your reference on your reference, because you can have one site that says one thing and then you can have another site that says another thing. And you just want to make sure that you have at least 1 or 2 to 4 sites that say the same information. Because even what I found with school, I have one reference book that states one thing, but that you pull out another one and it kind of contradicts itself, right? Because someone else's opinion is a little bit different or their experience is a bit different.
Are you suggesting that people disagree on the internet?
But I found the information from the internet, so it has to be true.
It has to be right. Yeah.
But now I have questions about fact checkers.
That's Monday night.
That's a different show, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, we're not going on that side.
And besides any soil preparation that you're going to want to do, we want to go back to the basics too, right? The tools you use, the buckets you use to grow in, you want to make sure that those are really good, really nice and clean, obviously dry, because if you're like us, you're hitting the cold winter season, so you don't want anything freezing and cracking, because some of those containers are not cheap. I really wouldn't worry about sanitizing. I mean, I do when I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I kind of sanitize when I put it away, and then I'll re-sanitize again when I start up in the spring. But it ensures that you're not, carrying any issues from your plants before into something else, or, no infestation or whatever, especially if you're like me, where the rental I live in, for some reason, the house has mites. So no matter what I grow, it will get mites unless it's a tropical plant.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
And what do you do to sanitize?
You beat me to it, Frugal.
My favorite thing, honestly, is just simple hydrogen peroxide and a good soap and water. And all I do is I will honestly take the Dawn dish soap and water, and I'll scrub it. And, you can even use antibacterial if you really want to, because then it really would hit that bacterial side, because plants do get bacterial issues that happen. You clean all that out, you do what you got to do, and then you just spray some hydrogen peroxide and water, and you just kind of let it dry. Just let it dry.
Everything is purchasable from the dollar store.
Even better.
Peroxide is one of those things anybody who is even thinking of being a prepper should already have on hand, just for the first aid value and the household usage value, let alone now gardening. That's fantastic news.
And not that I'm recommending it to anybody to follow what I do, but there is municipal properties to hydrogen peroxide. Do your research.
It's very complicated to light, though.
So I have a go down the rabbit hole maybe question.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, somebody has to do it. You're shutting down your garden, so you're going to put compost or leaves or anything like that. And I know there's emotions on both sides, because I got involved in a conversation and it went bad. So the question is, do you till it in or no till? Till or no till?
Ooh, I'm really not checking the email for at least a week now.
Because I live in a small town and my internet sucks. Are you asking what is better? Kind of like Pepsi versus Coke type thing?
Yeah, more or less.
Honestly, that's actually where it lies. See, during the winter, I tend to just honestly, I don't even mulch because we're not cool like that. And I mean, our landlord cuts our grass, and after a while, he gives up. So I honestly just rake my whole leaves or whatever grass cuttings are left right into the back garden because that's the soil I was working on before we bought a house. We would rake it up there, and then in the spring, I would either ask my friend to see if we can borrow his tiller, or I would just pick up a good old trusty pitchfork, fork, rake, whatever I have, and kind of circle it back in. Because to me, when you're getting that rainy season, and Corey's trying to come back on, so he might have something else different to say if he hears this. But to me, when you get that rainy season, it kind of helps break all that down because you have all the moisture and the wetness from all that melting snow and all this rain is going. The bugs are starting to come up and everything's kind of starting to wake up from the winter slumber. So they're getting to work. They're hungry. So I figure you're going to work a little bit harder to get what you need. Now, however, I'm standing to be corrected because I have not taken soil and pest control, but that is what I've done. And honestly, I've known a great success in doing that. And like I do grow cannabis for my medical purposes, so I do have to watch what I do to my soil because I am ultimately ingesting it. So this is one of the things that I wanted to experiment in, and I did notice that I don't fight with mildew or I don't fight so much with pests and other infestation issues what cannabis can get versus where I see my friends that are growing and they're using the horrible Miracle Grow, but not product and all this other stuff. So
Oh, interesting.
but you got to be careful, right? Because like Corey said earlier, you don't want to overdo it with your soil because now you're going to fight the opposite. You don't want to turn your soil unless because it depends on what you grow, right? Because the blueberries, you want your soil to be acidic because they love that stuff. They love their soil acidic. They like to have it spicy like it. But yet, if you're going to plant something like cannabis, it doesn't like an acidic soil. It likes more of a neutral type of palette, right? It likes everything kind of balanced and equal.
With some
So
Doritos
it
spread on the
depends
soil,
on
right? Yeah.
exactly.
Someone had to go there.
So you know what? The best thing that I can recommend, Jeff, is honestly do a portion of your garden, till it in, plant your stuff. Do another portion or a different garden bed, and don't just keep everything. Don't do it. You know what I mean? And then see how everything grows from that, because your region is different than mine, or your growing techniques might be different than mine are. You may have a go at it where the no till stuff until spring works a lot better, or the till at winter works better for you. That's all we do. Honestly, we're secret kind of crazy scientists that just keep experimenting left, right, and center. Ask Pierre. I collect seeds everywhere I go, and I try and make them grow in the house.
Yeah. So, and if you're gonna do that test where you're gonna do like I'm gonna till half my garden and not the other half, you do kind of need to put same things. So if you're gonna grow tomatoes, put 2 plants in the one you tilled and 2 in the other one. Don't do 2 complete different crops because then you're not gonna have a base ratio. So say you're going to test it with your peppers and your tomatoes on the part you tilled, and do whatever else. You got to put 2 plants of peppers and 2 plants of tomatoes in the part you tilled, and the part you're not tilling, put 2 of each, and do the exact same. Right? You keep the same watering, your same peroxide, all the stuff to keep the bugs away and all that stuff, and see which one yields better, which one tastes better, and then and then if you want, try it with other stuff. Like for all your peppers will be better and the stuff you tilled, and the tomatoes will be better than the stuff you didn't till. So now you know where your hard line is in your garden, where you're going to till and grow these 4 things, and where you don't till, you're going to grow these 4 things, and you're going to yield more, juicier, better, full, all those things. Like every plant grows differently.
I like it. All right, we've got a question. Yeah, question in the live chat. You're going to Dave?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. I haven't had the chance to actually touch on winter wheat at all. However, I don't see how it would hinder anything because wheat, to what I know, and I'm standing to be corrected, is not acidic. But what it could help with is also erosion. Because you got to remember, like besides trees and plants, that actually is an actual benefit, is that you don't want to have erosion happen with your soil or your ground as well. So again, I hate the fact that I can't 100% answer because like I said, I have not dealt personally with winter wheat. I'm still green and a newbie, but I mean,
What do you mean by
Experiment.
erosion?
For those who are
Erosion
listening
for
to the, so I was going to say, for those who are listening to the podcast later and can't or don't have the benefit of seeing the question up on the screen here, Dave's question was, for a large garden, would some winter wheat benefit the soil?
Yeah.
It's like the wearing away of the upper layer of the soil. It basically will like just disappear, right? Like you want to keep all the agents like how can I explain it? Sorry guys, I'm getting tired here. It just you lose that first layer of soil, and you're building all that stuff where when you look through the layers of soil, you want to make sure that you have all that nutrients and benefits all the way through. So when you plant certain plants, it helps maintain that and stabilize that. And I guess that kind of answers. Actually, Corey, you're back on now. The gentleman before asked about winter wheat. He asked if there was any benefits, and I did mention the fact about erosion because I haven't personally grown any type of wheat at all in my garden.
Wheat?
He's more specifically winter wheat. He's asking if there's any benefits of the soil with winter wheat.
Well, just letting anything rot down and decompose in the soil it's ultimately going to benefit the soil one way or the other. I mean, it might not be to your benefit, but it's going to benefit the soil, right? So if you're talking about winter wheat, where you sort of just leave it to rot, or you harvest it at the winter, it doesn't really matter. All the same, you do what you got to do with it. The soil will replenish itself after a while, given if you just leave it alone. Again, sometimes less is more. So if you're talking about what you should be doing, if you're unsure, it's always best to take a step back and just observe, watch nature, see what it does, right? And it'll actually help you in the greater scheme of things, because it forces you to slow down and realize you're just a little gear in this huge machine, right? And you gotta just sort of slow down, enjoy what's around you, because we're sort of losing that with all this nonsense going on. So now that I sort of jump back into it, get the Zen moment, Om, right? You gotta just sort of be one with nature. And if you're unsure, it's always best just to not read up a little bit more, and then from yourself, you'll gain that knowledge, and you're going to try, and you probably will fail, but that's how you learn, right? Period. If you're not failing, you're not learning.
It's great advice.
So you have to fail. I'm not a good gardener because I know how to garden. I'm a good gardener because I've screwed up a lot. I did
do a quick Google search, and on OntarioGrainFarmers.ca, the little blurb that pops up says research has proven that adding winter wheat to corn soybean rotation not only increases yield, but it also builds resilience against drought, help reduce the need for nitrogen fertilizer, and improves soil health. So again, according to the Googles, it does add a value to the soil, so it wouldn't be a bad thing to try. Again, just like I suggested to Jeff earlier, take a section of your garden, plant winter wheat in there, let it go right through, let it go through the flowering process and the decaying, and till it in, and the next year, like, you know what I mean? Like Corey said, experiment. Like I said earlier before you hopped on, we're just mad scientists that just secretly experiment with everything behind the scenes.
Well, for example, like my soil might not be the same as your soil, right? So I can sit there and say what's going to work for me. It'll be great for me. It'll make my life much easier. It's not going to work for you, and you're just going to get frustrated, and you're going to feel defeated. You're going to feel like you can't do what's supposed to be done, but you're not fighting the same battles as I am, right?
Exactly.
So that also goes back to knowing what you're growing in the whole grand scheme of things. So you have to, first of all, know what you're growing in, and then from there you can start adding your amendments. And after a while, like shutting down the garden is going to be much easier. The garden's going to actually work with you, and the more that you learn, the easier it's going to be, and the more benefit you're going to get from it, whether or not it's actual medicinal, therapeutic, spiritual, whatever the case may be. It's going to be greater in bounty.
Well, I have a really
Yeah.
big one for you both, for Corey and for Mel. And here it is, because I've seen this in a number of different places. I'm a bit of a nerd trying to catch up to having no knowledge of grow anything. And you just keyed in on it right there, Corey. How do I know whether I have a soil that is neutral, acidic, or alkaline? Is there a quick and easy way, or do I have to go through
Hydrogen
strips?
peroxide.
Yeah, there isn't an easy way. This is one of those things where sometimes science is your friend. There's a way where you can tell the percentage that you have in your, like, say for your clay, your silt, and your sand. There's a way you can actually
Mason
measure
jar.
that. And that's just it's a simple thing. It's just a mason jar trick. It's been done for years.
Posted it in the group
all-
chat the other day.
All you do is you take, we'll say 5 sections. So you take 5 mason jars. And what I like to do is I like to go to the 4 corners in the middle. So wherever your garden is, go to the 4 corners and then go to the middle. And you want to fill up the mason jar till it's about 2/3 full. Okay. Then you're going to fill the rest with water, put a lid on it, shake the crap out of it. All right. Now don't lose track of where they belong, and you're going to lay them out, and you're going to but like, it's a great experiment for the kids too. Gets the kids into gardening, and it's something that's really neat that they see after 24 hours. So you shake the bottle, you put them down, and as everything settles, they all have a different density, right? So they're going to start layering themselves. And then from there, you can start to see, oh my goodness, I got 40% clay. Like, I got to add some organic matter to this, and then you're going to see a little.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, they say, and you'll be able to actually measure it out, because you'll be able to see, and then you'll be able to judge and grade by the other mason jars that you have, if it's a constant across the board, or if it's just that one section that has a lot of clay, and maybe this section could be easily amended because it's more of a loomy soil, as opposed to over there where it's more compact, and people have been sort of, there was an old building there, so it's very compact and rocky and things of that nature. You'll never know until you get in there. But that's just a great trick. But there's also things that you can do with the common technologies that we have, the great power that is now. You can just get a simple test. And all you do is you go to any garden center, Amazon, whatever the case may be, and you find those little tabs, and they usually come in packs of 5. So it's not just a one and done. You have a couple that you can do. And then you basically go to the same idea, 5 locations, and you can test that. It gives you the pH. Should give you nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Should give you, if you're lucky, a bunch of micronutrients as well. But sadly, there's no way you can just sort of go in with a spoon and look at it and be like, oh, no, that looks good. Sometimes science is your friend.
You can also do a peroxide test as well, where you actually take hydrogen peroxide and with water and you pour it into your soil.
Yeah.
That will actually show you how much organic matter you actually have. So the more bubbles you have, the healthier the soil, right? So it works. But for the people that are on the panel, when you're in the group chat, I did post that, I think the beginning of this week or last week, that whole mason jar concept. So it does break it down. I have notes if you want me to send them to you as well, Claude. But
That's awesome.
there was one other thing I wanted to touch on too. No,
And
it
we've
was
got
a
one other
snail
question.
Never mind.
We got a question in the live chat if you guys want to go there.
Whoop.
So
Snails are
Pat in the bunker is
snails
just asking if
are-
snails are good for gardens.
they're detrimental. They can ruin a lot of things, but they do have their place in the garden, right? They do feed the birds, which sometimes birds help because birds will come and brush up against your garden and then go spread the seeds out in nature per se. But like, I try and rid my garden of all snails and slugs. I use eggshells mostly for that.
That you crush
I
up
just
eggshells,
crush up eggshells and then I
Yeah.
put a circle around my plant.
and so when the
Because
snail crawls, the eggshells are sharp, and it'll cut them. So the snails turn around and go away.
What's a really good trick with snails is stale beer.
Why on earth would you have stale beer?
That's always been the age-old question, right?
Why did you waste the beer?
Working too much.
It's harder to find stale beer, right?
Beer.
Yes.
That's one of those things where if you leave a beer open, right, and then you sort of you have it's a little bit skunky, a little bit flat, you pour that into like a jar, like a lid for screws or something like that, and you leave that in your garden. Now that's going to send off this nice little yeasty smell, and the slugs love it. And then they crawl into the little vat of goodness, and they get drunk and die. Now, if
Well,
you're
what
That's a
if
lot
there's
easier than the
no-
way I do.
if
So
you
it's a
have
pleasant way to
chickens,
go.
You literally can give that food now to your chickens as a little beer-filled treat of ooey gooey goodness. It's like a little gummy bear.
Protein
And your-
snipes.
and
Do they get drunk
Hey.
too?
Yeah, you can try. No. Well, they might. I've never given them enough slugs.
Challenge accepted.
Like this.
So we need to divvy up your chickens, and we're gonna do half of them are gonna get these slugs all the time, and see if it pre-marinates the meat from the inside.
Ooh, beer chicken.
Or changes the egg.
Right?
Yeah, you never know.
So one of them, you get them alcohol poisoning, and they die. The other one, you slice them up like they've been in a fight with who knows what, and that's how you keep them out.
Just like that.
I love it.
Oh,
You're so
boy.
smart. You want to finish my course?
Did we answer that question fully?
Yeah.
Sounds like
He
it
was
smells-
just asking, are they good or bad? Not
Yep.
like, and then we went on how to keep them out. So Mel,
Oh,
Mel
perfect.
mentioned if they were, depending on what the plant is, might be good, might be not beneficial.
Well, a good moral of the story as well. Again, a lot of people get defeated, right? And they feel like, oh, I can't do this. This is eating this, and the rabbits are in my garden. I got squirrels, and I got chipmunks, and I got birds, and I got all these things are against me. Just remember, deep down, okay, you got to just calm yourself. If something's not eating your garden is not part of the ecosystem.
100%.
Good point.
All right.
Absolutely
Great
good point.
You need to understand you are living in their world. They are there 24/7. You're just in your garden when you want to relax. Okay? Like you're sitting there growing your garden, your food for yourself, and you can protect it all you want. But Mother Nature is going to find ways to test you while you do that. If you don't want to do that, she's not going to test you as much because you're just not going to care. Right? But as
This is
soon
the
as
other
you
reason
want,
why.
as soon as you want to
Go
make
ahead.
sure that that's yours, you have to understand wholeheartedly that the whole ecosystem is still around you while you're in bed sleeping.
That's a really good point.
So
And honestly, that's a good
take a little bit
reason
of
why
pride
it's
in that.
Companion
At
planting
least
will be
you're
your best friend.
contributing. You're not making it worse for them. You're almost, it's almost like a little badge of honor that they want to eat your stuff as opposed to all the stuff that's around.
But you can also get away with companion planting as well, and then you
Yeah.
can have your sacrificial plants that you actually just give to the slugs because they prefer that over whatever else you're growing. And I do that all the time. Pour marigolds in my garden. That is what I use them for 100%.
Instead
To
of the
deter
sacrificial lamb.
pests away.
Brilliant. And in the spirit of Corey's way of thinking, if you've got squirrels who are troubling your garden and you happen to be in a jurisdiction where it is okay to hunt those squirrels, you just might have yourself a source of protein for soup. And squirrel soup is
100%.
And that
Squirrel
is-
wings. Squirrel
Just-
wings.
just an
Or
example.
It's
on the barbecue.
food
Barbecue
is
slathered
food.
with barbecue sauce.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
also
Yes.
Little
told
buffalo maple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Told groundhog paste
Buffalo
is
maple.
very good as well.
No, but that's sort of, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a little bit of a bait station if you want to get technical with it. But it's again, just take a little bit of pride in knowing that at least your food is healthy enough. It's got enough nutritional value in it that something in the wild wants to come to your garden and wants to enjoy your food. It's honestly, if you look at it that way, it makes it much more tolerable than they keep eating my food.
Yeah. Before we jump to anything else, I do have a thing that I want to just say out too. The other thing you want to be careful about with getting the whole winter thing and all that stuff is where you're actually plowing your snow. Because if you're taking it from the road and you're shooting it to the back of your garden and the snow is melting in that, you got to remember now you're putting the road hazard crap into your garden, and that's going to create another problem for you. So if you want to bring that whole concept of like zipping up the garden for the winter type thing, you want to really be very cautious on where you're throwing your snow, or even the runoff from your roof, right? Because over time it collects all that air, dust, and whatever else that goes onto your roof, that will drain into your garden as well.
That's a good point. And one that I don't think everybody kind of thinks about.
Yeah, there's a question here from John.
Yes.
Now, John, the 3 tools that I would give anybody if they were starting a garden would be probably a hoe, a trowel, and either this one's debatable, a rake or a shovel. Okay.
Can I pick the color of the hair of the hoe though?
Sure. Is this a made in Taiwan joke?
I identify the dirty blonde.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Now, what 3 veggies should someone start next spring? That's a great question. I always love to start with radishes, hands down, and get some fresh greens in there. So whether or not you're doing like spinach, lettuce,
Peas.
Swiss chard, yes, peas. Get the things that'll tolerate a little bit of a frost. Carrots, especially, get them out early. Get them out there.
Cannabis.
A lot of the root crops can take it. They can handle that. A lot of leafy greens, they can take it. They can handle it. They almost get a
Told you,
little
Pierre,
bit more.
about cold crops.
Yes. And a good size to start with. That's an excellent question. It's a loaded question, but that's an excellent question. A lot of people want this huge garden right away. And that's not a good way to go about it, because that's another way that you bite off more than you can chew. You feel really defeated. Weeds catch up with you. You have no time. Gardening no longer is fun. It becomes a chore. It's like doing dishes every day, and no one likes it. No one fights to do dishes, right? No one's going to fight to go weed the garden. So start as small as you need. What I would say is, if you have someone with a rototiller, or you can rent a rototiller, or even if you're physically inclined, as much as you can physically do without really going overboard. So what I would say is maybe 2 shovels wide, 6 shovels long. That's a great garden to start. And then you can actually plant a couple seeds, see where you go, plant what you like. That's the other thing too. If you're planting things that no one's going to eat, if you're planting things that you're just growing because the seeds are easy, you're not going to care about it. It's just going to go to the wayside. Who cares? But if you're growing things that you enjoy eating, like cucumbers, tomatoes, my personal favorite is watermelon. I love growing watermelon. So if you're growing things that you love to grow, your garden will stay more interesting to you.
Yeah. I was going to say, even
and you got more of that.
3 things is to pick 3 things you're actually going to eat.
Yeah. And on top of that, too, you got to remember, right? This is where that hippie side of all of us gardeners come in. You do have a spiritual attachment to your garden, because you are putting that energy, that time, that focus into growing something that's not only going to feed your body, your physical body, but it's going to feed that essence of who you are as well. Because it is the fruits of your labor. It is, you're doing something magical, if you will.
This
so
is
Corey's
no joke,
right. When
yeah.
you
I talk down to my eggplant all the time. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. I plant eggplant.
I remember him saying this.
I plant eggplant just so I can talk down to it. Just so I can say you suck. I hate you. I don't like you. Now and then I'll turn to the tomatoes and I'll say, you see that? Don't be like them. You can be better than that. Don't be like them. I have so much pride. I have so much faith in what you can do. Don't be like eggplant. Right? And you'd be amazed. No, you laugh all you want.
I love it.
You'd be amazed at how cathartic it actually is to take your rage out on produce. Right? You leave it all in the garden, man. Blood, sweat, and
You just
tears.
have to do it at home, right? Not in the store.
You beat me to it, Brad.
Oh no, that would be awesome. That would. Corey, you're videotaping that, please.
Yeah.
So
We
here
need security.
I
We need
was.
security to
6
produce.
o'clock
Yeah,
news
easier
tomorrow.
again.
Brad's kicked out of the grocery store for screaming at the eggplants.
If you
Well,
post
hold
that,
it a can
we'll
opener.
holding the can opener and praising the tomatoes.
I'll
The can of
subscribe.
tomatoes
Yeah.
that he's holding.
Wow.
Here, I thought you were
It's a
telling us
superfood.
your livelihood of going to the urinal.
Yeah. So yeah,
No, but
there's
like,
lots of things.
it-
Lots of things you can do to close up the garden, like talk smack to your eggplants.
I
yeah.
love it. That's awesome.
And they'll give you good fertilizer next year. The
Yeah.
good thing is with the garden is you want to remember the Harlem seeds is where you want to go because you want to be able to take your plants and put them into flower to collect the seeds. Because the whole point of having a garden is to complete that cycle. And for it to be able to complete that cycle, well, you want to be able to grow your crops again. So the Harlem seeds is where it is. Sometimes they're more expensive. Sometimes they're a little harder to find. But in all honesty, if you can, get them. Try and stay away from like the good old seed companies you find in the dollar store or whatever, because they have a lot of coatings and, they're GMO'd. So, just go to your local, like sometimes the Amish have it. I don't remember what I don't remember the seed companies I order off the top of my head, but like they're all Harlem style. I think they come from BC, to be honest, which I should actually try and focus more locally because again, native plants locally. I'm not putting in something that could be invasive, where everybody now in my town is like having a plant invasion.
So let's
But
expand on that real quickly because I know that's something that comes up all the time. The Harlem seeds versus something that you buy at like the dollar store or something that's GMO. Why can you not replant the ones or get seeds from the dollar store ones or the non-Harlem ones or Harlem or however you pronounce it? I know that's a question that a lot of people have.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing when they go with definitions of heirloom variety. Now it's basically anything over 50 years now, they can call an heirloom.
Yeah.
All right. So it doesn't matter if it's been tweaked with, played with, modified. It could be like corn, for example, was one of the first seeds ever to be actually, messed around with, and that all of this, like the whole GMO talk and things of that nature. It was literally designed to stop world hunger. It was designed to give people food that couldn't grow crops where they needed to grow crops. But somehow or another, greed got in the way, and now we're wasting more food than we're actually eating. So it's a really weird quandary, and it's an interesting thing. But the idea that the old seeds are still there, you can still find them. Now you're not going to have nice looking plants; they're going to be ugly. Like that's the whole idea.
I learned that. Not to cut you off, but I learned that
the older they are.
Not to cut Corey off, but like I thought he was bullshitting when he first said that. And when I started to actually take my studies seriously and get into the university and all that stuff I'm doing now, I thought he was full of shit. But then when I actually went to visit him at work and he took us through some of the stuff, I'm like, holy crap, I actually noticed that, yeah, they're not pretty. They don't look what you think they would. They're not as colorful or as big or anything like that. But however, take a bite out of the damn thing, complete different taste. You'll never taste something so much more fresher and like true to taste, in my opinion, anyways.
It's earthy. No, you're right, because it's a more meaty, earthy taste. And
yeah,
but that's just a good rule of thumb: is the uglier it is, the older it is. This idea of the picturesque, nice round red tomato, that everyone just slices neatly and puts on their sandwich, and there's a nice little slab of mayonnaise. That's great, but the amount of produce they throw out to get that perfectly round red tomato is remarkable. If there's
thousands and thousands
a slight
versus
nick, a bruise, you're not seeing it in the store because it's not even making it onto the truck.
no.
Right now,
They didn't
in
even
your
make
garden,
it to the processing plant.
exactly.
no, but they
grate it in
do.
the
But they
field
do
and
have.
threw it out.
Yeah, or either they give it back to the soil, like you said, or whatever. But there's actually organizations that are out there that will take these imperfection fruits from those factories and actually will give it to like food banks or. I think I forget what the other place did do it. So, but mostly they give them off to other people that want them and use them and eat them because they're not going anywhere. They're just gonna go to shit.
Well, no, some get used for sauces and all these other things like that. But the amount that you or I would not see a problem with bringing into your house, slicing off a bit of the side just because there's a bit of a bruise on it or whatever, and then eat that wouldn't even that would be done. And that's the
Yeah, but you can't do that
thing.
in a restaurant, right?
No. Everything's got to be
So
perfect.
that's where it goes.
Well,
Yeah.
So, I mean, put yourself in the point of view of a customer.
Oh,
where,
absolutely.
Like, why am I going to pay the same price for a perfectly good thing? Or I need to cut an eighth of my tomato off because it's got a bruise. Well, I don't want to.
But it's like being on Snap. It's like being on Snapchat, taking one of those fancy ass pictures, and then someone meets in real life.
No,
I'm too old to be on
I
Snapchat.
completely understand what you're saying. Why would I pay for a piece of shit?
Yeah, or put that on the discount aisle where I'm willing to be like, yeah, I'll cut that up, right? But it's just like, so I see why, because that's too good for most people, and I have an issue saying like, I can pay $1 for this tomato. It's nice, it's big, it's perfect. I can make 9 sandwiches with it, or I can take this one and I gotta cut a section off, and I can only make 7.5 sandwiches, and they're the same price.
That's fantastic. Now let me ask you one question.
Yeah.
What happens when that store's not there anymore?
I know where you live.
He can't be pretty anymore.
It doesn't matter what the tomato looks like. If the store's not there for you to buy that pretty tomato, you're going to eat whatever tomato is there.
Yeah. And that's the deciding
factor.
Most
again,
people
greed,
don't think like that.
No, and that's what I mean. Greed gets in the way, and it's the creature comforts where, I'm just going to go to the store, I'm going to get a nice tomato. They don't even know where it's been.
Yeah.
They don't know how long it's been taken to get there, right? So that's the other thing too, is taking back control. This is the only thing left, in my estimation, that's free to do. As a free person, I can put a shovel in my ground. I can till up the soil. I can put a seed in the ground that I can get for free from a friend. I can trade and barter my services.
From the forest.
I could plant those seeds, and then I get food, tax-free. No one can touch it.
Easy
I don't think there's anything else out there that doesn't cost money.
Technically, you're paying taxes for the land.
Okay. Right. All right.
But you're paying taxes for that land and going to the grocery store.
Yeah, no, so that's the whole idea.
There,
like if you're going fishing, you need a license to fish. You're going hunting, you need a license to hunt. I don't need a license to garden yet.
Don't say that too loud on the internet.
Yet.
Exactly. So and as soon as that happens, I'm not a big guy to start rattling cages and stuff. As soon as there's a law that says I need a license to garden,
do you need help?
oh man.
So
do you
don't
need
give
help
them any
to
ideas.
rattle that cage?
What's that?
Do you need help to rattle that cage?
Oh no. Once they figure out a way to tax it, they're gonna
start the witch trials again. I see how it's going.
Oh boy.
We are
going down a rabbit hole.
Grow this plant.
Don't give them any ideas.
I don't know how to grow.
So
but
you said
again, like it comes. Oh, go ahead, Pierre.
Okay. So you said anything past 50 years is heirloom?
Yeah, that's basically the benchmark now, is where they can start classifying those seeds as. So it's not everything is, right? Because what our definition of heirloom variety is, 1800 stuff.
So does that make Jeff and Frugal heirloom?
A lot of the stuff now that they can claim as heirloom is literally just 50 years old. So it's all in the wordplay. And now, because everyone's gobbling up that heirloom word, right? The heritage variety and all that stuff. It's just changing the name, checking the box.
Yeah. So I misunderstood that heirloom was if you bought heirloom tomatoes, you could harvest those seeds and replant them compared to other ones. Like that's what I thought the distinction between regular and weren't.
That's what I thought as well.
It is in some ways, because some of the other seeds have that coating on it, and if it has a coating, it's been GMO'd. So sometimes, I'm going to say most time that I replanted seeds from those seeds, they don't grow, or they don't grow as well.
It's the hybrids. If you get a hybrid, they are not successful. Now, if you get other plants, some of them might have been tweaked, but seeds want to grow, right? Who was it? Professor Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park. Life finds a way, right? It finds a way. And sometimes these seeds want to grow. They don't want to die. But if you have a hybrid, it's actually been sort of modified enough that it's a hermaphrodite anyway. It's not going to grow. Okay.
This is actually a good. Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, I thought you were done.
Well, I'm never done.
Well, I was just gonna say, now that we're actually touching on seeds, that actually falls under like what we're talking about in the podcast too tonight, like seed storage for the winter, because you don't want to have at certain temperatures and certain places either.
That's very true. You want a nice, cool, dark area. Now, not freezing, but you
Yes,
want about.
I said yes, sir.
Yes.
It's agreeing.
No, so you want a nice, cool, dark area, somewhere where it won't get moldy, won't get freezing. Freezing is okay, but like you want to talk about maybe 3, 4, 5 degrees. So in a nice basement, in a corner somewhere, under a staircase, somewhere where it's not really well insulated in your house, right? If you have cold storage, something like that, where it stays nice and chilled. Frost will kill it, so try not to let it get too cold. But
be careful of the cold germination too, because that could also germinate your seeds, because there is some seeds out there that cold germination will actually activate the growth process.
And you'll go back, there's these little green sprouts and things, and it's a neat little, because there's no sunlight, but again, they want to grow, right? There's no stopping them. If they want to, they're gonna. But absolutely, there are many different ways, but you want to keep your seeds somewhere cool, somewhere dark, and that'll expand the life of them dramatically. Now, seeds themselves, as long as you keep them out of sunlight and you don't keep them in an area that's always 20 degrees, they'll be pretty good for 3 to 5 years, depending on the seed, right? Depending on the seed. Now, if you keep them somewhere where it's hot all the time, it's going to degrade the seed rapidly. If you keep them, somewhere in the sun, same idea. So cool and dark is your friend when it comes to saving your seeds.
Okay. So say you don't have a cool dark spot in your house. Is in a container that you kind of blacked out in the bottom of your fridge that never gets crazy cold, but in that drawer on the bottom that only gets light when it opens, is that
I
like
would
a
even
good
say
alternative?
Well, I wouldn't say that the
look
fridge
what
is then
happens
you're
to
sort of taking
cannabis
up space
seeds
in your fridge.
Yeah.
Well, that, and look what happens with cannabis seeds when I put them in fridge.
Yeah.
I would just say, honestly, throw them in if you have a little Tupperware, right? Just a little Rubbermaid Tupperware. Put a lid on it, because they're all going to be dried anyway, and they'll all be stored up. That's a whole other thing, seed saving and preserving. But once you get them into that process where they're dried and they're cured, all the moisture that you need is taken out of them. You can literally put a lid on it, toss it under your bed, right? Toss it somewhere where it's not like the heat rises naturally. So the lower you can go, the better. If you have a basement, fantastic. If not, in a shelf in your closet, somewhere where it's just out of the way. It's going to be out of your hair, and then you can come back in the spring and grab it.
Okay.
Another good thing too, like you can get them from the dollar store. You could either put cassette tapes in them, or sometimes you can put bracelet stuff or bead stuff. Sometimes you can get those little, or even fishing lures. I know I'm the only girl on here, so like fishing lure containers. You can even have it too, where you can get them adjustable, where you can put them all in that. As long as you're not keeping them in a very moist, heated area, like Corey was saying, you're not going to create the moisture, which may activate and germinate your seeds within the container. And it keeps them nice and organized, and they're not getting bumped around and crushed and everything else. Because if you crush your seeds, it's not going to work either.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the dollar store is you can go buy dime bags for your seeds, and then you can write on them, like they actually have them there. So like, your pepper stuff or whatever, and then you can put that in a container or that tackle box and write it with the Sharpie, something that's not going to erase. So yeah, you can buy the little Ziplocs at the dollar store in the craft section, and you'd be surprised how many seeds can fit in a little. Take a sandwich Ziploc. How many pepper seeds do you think you can put in one of those?
Challenge
More than enough. You wouldn't get through them all.
Yeah, right, exactly, right? Like, so yeah, seeds are so small that I'm like, they take next to nothing to store, and very easy to keep straight as long as you write everything and close the bag properly.
Oh, I like it. Well, we're getting into about an hour and a half. Is there any kind of final thoughts or final tips and tricks that you guys would want to make sure the listeners are aware of?
Honestly, get out there and experiment. Take some of the suggestions that you've seen on tonight's podcast, and just get out and experiment. You know, you don't have to go and make yourself, like Corey said, a big Victorian garden and be like a complete rock star for it. Start small, go slow, start small, and start building from there. Gain your knowledge, but don't be scared to screw up. Heck, I do it every year. There's one thing I absolutely fit. Oh, pumpkins, like Corey's watermelon pumpkin, master, where I always get mildew every year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just get out there and experiment. And then even when you have those issues, start looking into how can I fix those and learn how to do it that way. You may kill your plant, but you're still feeding your soil in some ways too, as long as you're not using harsh chemicals, which then all falls into the whole getting prepared for winter again and starting the cycle all over again.
Just
I like it.
Grow enough to make yourself two pasta sauces next year. Try it out. See if it's better than that.
That's a fantastic goal.
Yeah, just something that's better than you can buy at the store.
I like it. It's almost like practice and fail now while times are good, and you've got the grocery store as a backup. So if that grocery store is not there,
exactly it.
Yeah,
you've got it all figured out.
I like it.
And that's what
100%.
people should be understanding is right now is the time to practice, to make these mistakes. Because when it happens, it's going to be so fast. No one's really going to be able to grab it. And then all of a sudden, when the rubber hits the road, you're going to need to, to do it. And if you do have a catastrophic failure or there is an infestation of XYZ, whatever bug is your personal choice this week, it's going to be detrimental to not only you, but the people that are counting on you. It also takes away from your ability to trade, barter. It takes away your buying power. So it's always nice now, like you said, while times are good, practice. Yep. Get your hands in the dirt. There's worse things you could be doing.
It's true.
Great message.
100%.
Like it. Awesome. Well, we'll end things there. We'll move into the podcast challenge, and thanks to Corey and Mel for taking some time to share your knowledge and wisdom with us, because it's going to go a long way for a lot of people, even just based on the live chat tonight. It's always a popular topic, so I do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I thank you for having me back. And yeah, it's one of those things. Anytime you can share how to feed people or have more ways to feed people, it's again, food is food. Everyone should have it. There shouldn't be a debate about it.
100%.
100%.
Bravo.
All right, let's move into the podcast challenge then. So the podcast challenge for this episode is get your garden ready for next year. Take everything you've just learned and apply it. Also, while you're at it, grab some seeds because you're going to need them for next year.
Roger that.
100%.
Hey, Jeff, you got a weather blurb?
Yeah, just a little bit. So even though it is late October, there is a new hurricane that's formed in the Atlantic. Hurricane Tammy at this point, the only threat to land appears to possibly be Bermuda, where it will be a tropical storm by the time it gets there. With the ocean temperatures being as warm as they are, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple more pop up. Having said that, though, temperatures are starting to cool in and around Canada and even some spots into the States. There were some snowflakes that appeared around today. So be prepared for the changing weather and the changing road conditions. I would suggest it's time to at least start thinking about changing your tires and putting your winter tires on before the first snowfall hits and there's the mad rush. A good number is once daytime temperatures get below +7, your all season, which are really not all season, only 3 season tires, the compound starts to get hard, you lose traction. So it's much better to go to a true winter tire. There have been several small earthquakes in and around BC and Washington State over the last couple of weeks. The largest was actually a 4.9 on Vancouver Island on October the 16th. So I'm not really reading a lot into that. There's always rumbles and stuff going on up and down the fault line from basically California all the way up the West Coast. But there has been a little bit of increase in activity. So just something to be aware of.
I bet somebody just gave Ian a life straw, so he got mad and stomped the ground.
That means that.
Who's Ian?
I don't know. I just made that name up. I thought it was
Oh,
funny.
okay. Yeah.
The part-timer.
All right.
It's
So
my
move
imaginary
into
friend.
the deal of the week. And Mel, you've got something here?
Yeah, I actually, for the topic tonight, where did it go now? I just closed it. I found a green polytarp from Home Hardware for $9.47. So if you need anything to get tarped up, including air conditioners, it's a good deal. I forget. I didn't even type down what size it was though. That's my bad.
Green polytarp is perfectly fine. If you want to figure out the size,
It's not
check out
blue,
Home
but
That's up to you.
Yeah, it's not blue. It won't
not
keep you safe
blue, but
from
it's
from
green.
the lasers.
Hardware. Awesome. Well, with that, I'll bring episode number 219 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Submit a review. It does help other people find us.
We do record these shows live on YouTube, Facebook, if you must. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel Canadian Prepper Podcast and click the notifications tab. That gives you alerts when we're going live. You can find me on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, and CPP Discord.
And if you're looking to reach out to me, I'm not responsible enough to have my own email. So it's feedback@prepperpodcast.ca, or I am frequently on the Discord.
Pierre.
Yeah, so I'm not even allowed to use the feedback one to get in touch with me. So you'd have to reach me personally, I guess, on the Discord. I am on there, but I haven't opened it, and there's too many notifications, and I just closed it. Off the wall customizing pretty much on everything, or on Monday nights you can find me on the other CPP, the Patriot Podcast, where we get way more into why communism, like the beginning of the show and all that, where we critique the government.
And well, I was gonna say you could find me like through him since he's gonna scan all my emails and stuff. So, but you can just email me at offthewallcustomizing@gmail.com as well if you have any questions or t-shirt needs or engraving needs.
Awesome. Corey.
Check me out. I believe it's just on Facebook, CC Squared Back to Basics Gardening. Other than that, I'm usually in my little hobbit hole in the back.
Awesome. All right. You can check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com and get me there on the live chat, or you can flip me an email at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us. And until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
And keep learning.